I can help. I invite you to take a moment and get in touch with me either by email or by phone to schedule your free, no obligation 5-star relationship call. And you can reach me by phone at area code 919-924-0463. That's 919-924-0463. Or you can reach me by email at Leslie, Lesli, at foundationscoachingnc.com. That's FOUNDATIONS, coaching, N as in Nancy, C as in Charlie.com. And I want to get back to this conversation about attachment styles and how it's impacting your current relationships. So, Carolyn, as you were talking about the avoidance, my supervisor popped into my head, and he was always talking about the balance of being, alone, individual versus together. This dance we do, and it sounds like the people, and I hear this all the time when people are talking about, well, I don't want to give up my independence in a marriage, and it's like, well, first off, you don't have to. That's not required. It's not a dependent versus independent. Like you've been talking about, these styles aren't like isolated little boxes. There's overflow, if that's the right word. So, and a lot of this stuff is you're talking pursuer, distancer, and all these things that we talk about in our field, and even maybe just male-female differences. And, you're talking about the avoidant style, looking on the outside like it's, people have it together and whatever, but my guess is avoidants have a really hard time asking for help, or
yes.
Whether it's from their partner or anybody else, right? Because that's the, and the Western culture is like, well, you just, I'm thinking of, the famous British expression of, how calm and carry on, stiff upper lip. We just don't want to, so I'm like going, oh my gosh. Right. So what's a better way to deal with an avoidant style?
For the person who is, in all of these cases, our attachment style is pretty hardwired. Mm-hmm. So while the goal is, we want to become as secure as possible, that is a relationship process. So we're going to become more secure in our relationship, and the goal really is to create a secure, functioning relationship. And so whether you are the avoidant person or you are married or partnered to the avoidant person, you're trying to create a balance of each other's needs and the relationship's needs. And so in looking at and being partnered with an avoidant, you're trying to, or an anxious for that matter, you're trying to accept the needs as something that we come by naturally. This is how I was taught to be in relationship. This is how I formed in relationship. I can't help that this is my natural tendency is to pull away, to take space when I'm overwhelmed. And so the first step is in sort of, the term is radically accepting, which is to accept something that is difficult or unacceptable, to sort of go, okay, these are your needs. This is how you function in relationship. I accept you, and then we work together to figure out a better, healthier dance for our relationship of balancing each of our needs and the relationship's needs. So if I'm partnered with an avoidant-ish person, and I'm, speaking of gender, I'm more on the avoidant sort of side of the spectrum than the anxious side of the spectrum. So it's not just by gender, but we're going to do the opposite that your nervous system is telling you. So if I'm anxious and my partner's avoidant, my system is telling me, go get them. Right. And I train couples in, okay, breathe through that impulse and actually give them more space. And if you give them more space, they will naturally access their own capacity to come to you, which is the goal. We don't want to force anybody to do something that they don't naturally want to do. We want them to access their own interest and desire and, connection impulses rather than chasing it out of them or punishing them into doing something. So you actually give them more space, and that allows the avoidant to breathe, reset, and come forward. And the avoidant in being partnered, if they're partnered with an anxious person, is their impulse is to pull away and to hide, to run away, and to go against that, to breathe through that impulse and then lean forward, because the avoidant person fears, I'm going to be engulfed, I'm going to be suffocated, I'm going to lose my identity or my independence. And once we breathe through that fear, whatever our attachment fear is, we can then access our care for the relationship.
Well, and that's so interesting, because as you're going through that, one of the things that I run across in couples all the time is that, one person who wants to hash out something right now because they're anxious about it, and then the other person who's like, no, I need time to think about it. And so there's this dance, and it's like, okay, you can't run away forever, but you got to let them go so that they can have that space. And it truly is this learning how to make space for both people, regardless of what their attachment styles are, because I think what I understand is that's how the relationship itself becomes more secure. Did I get that right?
And you did get that right, yes. You are trying to allow for each other's needs, accept it with love, create space for those needs, and then once because none of us change under threat or shame. The couples that have been banging their heads against a wall because I'm trying to get you to change. The question I ask simply is, how's that working for you? Is it are you getting anywhere with that? No.
Right.
Okay. How about you try accepting them for who they are and see what happens then? Love them in who they are. Love them for their fears, because all of our annoying behaviors, whether they're attachment driven or not, come from a need that we have. And if we stop focusing on the annoying behavior, the difficult behavior, and then focus instead on the need underneath for space, for autonomy, for connection, for love, for reassurance, if we focus on that, it becomes easier to provide it. So working to accept each other as we are, and then together in that place of acceptance, look at, all right, what's the right dance? How do I make sure I give you what you need? How do I make sure I get my own needs met? And it allows for a more natural rhythm to that dance. And we're not trying to create codependence, another term that is, having a renaissance that is so misdefined all over the place. But we're not trying to create codependence. We're trying to create interdependence, where there is healthy reliance on each other and healthy connectedness, where we both trust that there's room for our needs, that we're going to get our needs met, because we do better health-wise if our relationship needs are being met.
So how do people...
Did that answer the question? I feel like I rambled.
No, it does. And, and so I'm, channeling my listeners, and, so it's like, how do I figure out what my needs are, how I need to, deal with my own fears, because of course I can't ask my partner to do something that I don't have clarity about. So, I mean, obviously the first place I have to start is with me. And so what's the process for that?
Well, and I'm gonna blow your listeners' minds, because I actually believe in the reverse of that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
The first place to start is actually taking better care of your partner, because of that very thing that you're talking about. I often, because the part of our brain that is running this show, that is driving the bus here, is the amygdala, is the part that is our emotion center, and our brain stem is sort of driving the fight or flight response that we get into if our attachment wounds, our attachment needs get triggered. It is out of our verbal consciousness. We don't know that it's happening, and it's much faster than our capacity to form words around it. So our partner is going to have greater capacity to notice that something's up with me than I am. And so learning to meet each other's needs, to have each other's owner's manual, to know, okay, those are your triggers, and I'm going to avoid stepping on them. But if I accidentally step on them, I know the antidote to that trigger. I know how to give you space if you need it. I know how to reassure you if you need it. I know how to give you a hug, whatever it is. That's going to be faster at creating what we call in the biz a corrective emotional experience, where I learn that my needs matter, where I learn that it's okay to have needs, where I learn that I am safe. It's going to be my partner that does that for me. I have lots of people who come in and say, all right, well, I've ended my relationship and now I'm going to take some time on my own to learn how to be healthy in relationship. And you can't.
Right.
We can't be single and learn how to be healthy in relationship. We have to do the work in our relationship. And I'm not saying that I'm not responsible for my own behaviors. I'm not absolving any individual from taking responsibility, but I am saying that the fastest way to healing in relationship is through the relationship and is through learning my partner's stuff and how I can take care of that for them and them doing the same thing for me. And so a mutual, reciprocal, fair, and just relationship is one where we're both taking care of each other's needs before we're taking care of our own needs. And that may be, I'm giving you space by yourself. I'm giving you space to go be with your friends. It's not, I take care of you to the exclusion of my own needs, because in a fair and mutual system, you're making sure I have my needs met as well. But that's the ideal scenario, is you actually take care of your partner. And I'm speaking to both people in the relationship as a way to learn healthier attachments.
Okay, and as you're saying this, I'm thinking of some couples that I've had where the attachment wound of one partner triggers the attachment wound of the other. So we've got this mutual dynamic going on. And, one of the things I ran into is like, well, how can I focus on my partner's needs when, my needle is like, going crazy because, and again, I mean, it could be something, I mean, I don't, I tell the story about my husband once upon a time for a major birthday trying to throw me a surprise party, which he will never do again. Because he was getting very secretive, and my husband, and bless his heart, my husband is a lousy liar, so I knew he was lying to me, and and that just sent me like, I mean, I just went bonkers to the point where my two children both looked at him. It's like, is Mom okay? And he's like, I have no idea, and luckily I knew enough that when I calmed down, it was like, oh, that's what happened. So my next major birthday, he said, you're not getting a surprise. I said, yes, I know. I'm never going to get a surprise party ever again, because, the poor man was just trying to do something nice for me, and there goes my attachment stuff all, spread all over the living room. So how do people navigate that? I mean, luckily I was able to figure it out. He had no idea, but, so how do we do this?
Well, ideally, this isn't to be found in a book or even a podcast. It is to be found looking at each other, because words can lie, but bodies don't lie. So if we're paying attention to our partner's body, their face, their how, if there's a lot of color, if they're getting red in the face, if their muscles are starting constricting, if their movements are getting tighter, if their voice is elevating and getting higher, there are all kinds of indications. And if we're paying attention to that, those are the faster and more reliable indicators of what's actually happening. And so that's first. Learn your partner. Learn what their triggers are. Learn how quickly, learn their escalation patterns, because some people are slow boilers. I'm a slow boiler. It takes me a long time to get really mad, but once that blows, you want to get everyone, like, clear the decks. Mom's mad, that kind of thing. Learn their escalation pattern. Learn those antidotes. All that sort of stuff, that you have that in your back pocket. And then learn the conversations that are risky for the two of you to have, the situations where you are prone to have problems. For a lot of couples, and I was just helping a couple with this morning, had a wonderful trip together, and then they're parting from vacation, and they had one of the biggest fights they've ever had. So transitions can be really hard for couples. The end of the day can be hard for couples. When we're in public, we're really sensitive to relationship risks and challenges. So know all of those things.